It says live. Cool. Okay. Great. There we go. I can. Oop! Don't close it. I need to hide it so it's not annoying anybody. Cool. Because I can't use that computer. Okay. Yeah. So. Oh, also, I should let food pass me by first.
Dad took the bowl upstairs.
Oh, I didn't know he had my food. Well, I will eat after them. Anyway. Okay.
It's very nice the way your beard just follows you.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a little behind, but it does its best. The lighting is doing weird things. I cannot figure out what to do.
No, it can't. It really can't.
Is my screen blue and black or white and gold?
It's definitely blue and black. I can see it as both ways. Your screen it's changing back and forth on me.
It's really struggling. Yeah. So anyway, Harry Potter.
We should all freak out about it.
Oh, we should. But is the screen? Yeah. I think we had a meeting earlier, and somebody brought up the dress, and it was with Harry Potter people, and I was like, it's the sorting dress. It's sorting people into their houses of blue and black or white and gold. It was apparently even on the Dutch national news.
Oh, God.
I've seen so many different news stations covering it. It's really funny when legacy media covers it, because they're like, very serious news to report. The internet is freaking out because of dress. It's been... There's my food. Ooh.
Oh.
Harry Potter.
So this is not one of the questions that you put on there, but I just would like to point out that at the very beginning of this chapter, 13-year-old Fred and George have bewitched snowballs to throw themselves at Voldemort's face.
I know. It's amazing. I think that is so great. I just want to know, like, did they realize later that they had bewitched snowballs to hit Voldemort in the face? And did they... I feel like that's something they would brag to others about, like, one day.
And I feel like that's something I feel like even if they had known it was Voldemort, they still would have done that.
Yeah.
That seems like a Fred and George Weasley thing to do.
Yeah. Yes. My answer is yes. There wasn't a question, but the answer is yes.
I'm going to close the thing because we're going to put the TV on.
Okay.
Let me know.
Okay. Yeah, so questions though. I didn't see you add any.
I didn't. I have a bunch, but I did not get them in time, and it's been view only today.
Oh, okay. I might need to change it, or I can just give you specifically the link so it. Yeah. I don't know. I'll look at it. I'll figure it out. If you want to go first with any of your questions, that's cool. I'm fine. I'm fine going totally out of order, but...
And I'm good with that tonight, too, because I have taken my medication. So... I'm trying to find if this is in my notes for this chapter or the next chapter. I think it's the next chapter. So I'm wondering, like, oh no, it is this one. Hagrid is terrible at keeping secrets. Like, horrible at keeping secrets. And we'll find out later that he was expelled during his 3rd year at Hogwarts. And we know that his father died. And
Actually, we already know he was expelled. That we find out in the very beginning.
You're right, we do. You're right, we do.
I was just in Dutch, that scene right now, so...
So we know that he was expelled during his 3rd year at Hogwarts. We know that his father has died. We know that his mother was not around when he was little. And I'm wondering if that stunted his emotional and social growth, like what it was like for him to not go through school and have that experience learning to socialize,
Yeah.
and also not having parents and not really having any adults that we know of that looked after him aside from Dumbledore giving him the job. And I'm wondering if that's sort of why he's so terrible at keeping secrets, because it has in some way stunted his emotional and social growth.
Yeah. It also makes me wonder, did Dumbledore give him the job right when he was expelled? So did a 13, 14-year-old boy have a job working on, or, and if not, then what did he do for however long?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he got the job immediately
I
after.
would think so.
So it would have been, like you said, a 13 or 14-year-old boy with a full-time job, also watching all of his peers get to go on and actually become wizards and witches.
Yeah. Wow, this food smells really good. I kind of am gonna eat this. Hold on, I need a device for putting food into my mouth. Other than a hand. I could shovel with my hand, but this is live on the internet.
Another thing, one of the things that I heard them talking about in the Aloha Mora podcast was they pointed out that in this chapter, they say that the few owls who did make it back to Hogwarts in the snowstorm had to be nursed back to health by Hagrid, and throughout the series, there are several different instances of animal abuse and misuse and mistreatment. And one of the things they brought up on Alohomora was why doesn't the Postal Service just use the Flu Network? That seems like it'd be a really efficient way to get mail to and from wizarding locations, at least.
Wow, I just I just realized how much better of a mail system that would have been. Oh my gosh, wow.
And we know that we don't know. It's possible that they just had hundreds and hundreds of owls dropping the letters down the chimney in the beginning of this book, but I think it's more likely that they probably connected it to the Flu Network and sent the hundreds and hundreds of letters through the chimney that way. Otherwise, I don't feel like they would have burst out quite the way they did. So I think it's probably possible for them to use the Flu Network, but instead they mistreat animals and make them fly in snow and horrible conditions and get hurt.
Hmm. And they could create more jobs in the Wizarding World if they had people delivering through the Flute Network, and then we would solve the problem of what jobs are there in the Wizarding World. Well, you could be a mail carrier. Although
Yes.
I imagine maybe there's some. Um, See, I'm not sure that the letters came through the Flute Network for that chimney. I never thought about that. Maybe I would have to think about it more. But when I was thinking of using the Flute Network, I would think the person has to like go through somehow.
Well,
So
we
maybe
know
they
that
don't
you
have
can
to
just stick your head in a fire. We find that out later, like you can stick your head in a fire to talk. So I wonder if they couldn't
stick your arm in
stick your
and
arm
drop.
in with the letter and drop it off.
Hmm. It seems like the owls, though, also have a better sense of where people are than the Flute Network would.
And
Like
they're
that
like
would be
higher
where the government
sense,
tracking people better.
yeah, but their like higher sense of knowledge and intelligence makes me think it's kind of even worse that they're being mistreated.
Mm-hmm. Never thought about that. When I read that, I was just thinking like, oh, these kids can't get their letters for Christmas because the owls can't make it. I was just thinking people wouldn't send the owls during the snowstorm because your mail can't go, so don't send it. Why
But
would
we
you
know
send
that
your
they
owl out?
obviously
It's
do.
dangerous. Oh yeah, yeah, I guess so. I would just think if it's too dangerous, I would just tell my owl like, yo, bro, just chill. And if I really need to get in contact with somebody, I will figure it out. I don't need to put your life in danger.
Hmm.
But
And then my big thing for this chapter is that J.K. Rowling has told us via Twitter that there was at least one Jewish student at Hogwarts during Harry's time there. And it's at least implied, I feel like it's explicitly stated, but it's at least implied that everyone who remained at Hogwarts for the winter holiday celebrated Christmas together. There aren't that many people there, but there are 100 roast turkeys. And they talk about like the sheer volume of food. Um, oh, and that's the other thing. I'm going to do a side note first. Harry and Ron were roasting bread and English muffins and marshmallows on the fire in the Gryffindor common room, and I would like to know where they got those from because they don't yet know about the portrait to get into the kitchen to get food.
don't go pointing out the plot holes. Come on.
So is there a commissary at Hogwarts? But my big thing for this chapter is that they talk about the Christmas dinner, and they talk about the Christmas crackers, and they talk about all the Christmas stuff. And I'm wondering what it says about the series that the only winter holiday officially celebrated is the Christian holiday of Christmas. And we'll find out later that they celebrate Easter holidays as well. But there's never any mention of like Hanukkah or anything like that. And I know she couldn't, logistically it would be difficult to go through and include all of those things just for the sake of being politically correct. But we don't hear a mention of a holiday that is not like considered a Christian holiday except for Halloween.
Yeah. I think part of that, and this isn't like excuse the um, heavy Christian bias, but part of that is that the UK culturally, like people who aren't Christian, it's not even a religious holiday. It's like in the US we do it too, and it has Christian roots. Um, that celebrate Christmas, or is I think it's higher there in the US. I don't know how the stats. I'd have to like look some stuff up.
Yeah, I understand what
But
you're saying. Like a lot of people who are non-religious
it
or who
isn't.
are other religious
And the other
still
thing is,
celebrate Christmas.
Harry is oblivious, and Harry doesn't notice. But
Yeah.
yeah, it would have been nice if there were mentions of other holidays and other religions.
And I specifically feel bad for that at least one Jewish kid who like apparently doesn't get to have Hanukkah.
He might. It might be possible the school gives him time off. Like some school systems will allow you to have certain time off for religious holidays. So it's possible
That's true.
Jewish students are able to make special arrangements, and students of other religions as well. Um, we would find out from Harry's perspective because I don't think Harry, outside of his Draco Malfoy Voldemort world, mostly Draco Malfoy.
And that was one of the things I was wondering about as well. I wonder what Christmas at Malfoy Manor is like.
That's an interesting question.
Like we know well, I imagine Narcissa would be quite doting and loving, but Lucius is not a nice guy, and that I mean he's not a nice guy to his family either. So Draco sort of like brags and like shoots Harry down for not having family wanting him to come home at Christmas. But if you think about it, how great is Christmas really going to be for Draco if he has to spend it with his father?
Um, I don't think it's that horrible for Draco. Like, I don't think. I mean, he's not getting the outright abuse that Harry gets, and even Dudley gets like very strange parenting. Um, as I've been rereading in Dutch, because it's slower for me to read, I'm noticing more details, and as I've been going through, I'm like, when Uncle Vernon is like decides to just spontaneously like freak out and he starts nailing things shut, and then he's like, "We're going in the car, we're driving away," like that sort of erratic behavior is probably freaking Dudley out. I never thought about how freaked out he is. I was just like, oh, he misses his TV shows, whiny
I
little brat.
read an interview today, actually. It was an interview with J.K. Rowling, and they asked her what Dudley saw when the Dementors were there, and she said she feels like she would just see himself as he is and realize like what kind of upbringing he's had. So that's a good point about how traumatic that must have been for Dudley as well.
I mean, that's why the next time he and Harry really ever had any contact, he said, you know, you're not a waste of space. That was at the beginning of the 7th book, because they didn't see each other really in the 6th book.
Mm-hmm.
So he realized and spent a couple of years brooding, and then was like, oh, you know, they send Christmas cards according to J.K. Rowling too.
Mm-hmm. And then Dudley leaving Harry tea every morning, but Harry thinking it's a booby trap.
Yeah.
It's very sad, but it's also precious.
Yeah. Yeah, even just like rereading the beginning few chapters, I'm like, come on, Harry and Dudley, you guys could totally team up to get those letters. You both want to read them. Imagine if they had been friends. Like, Dudley could have been like, my way cool cousin is a wizard, and watch out, bro.
Mm-hmm.
They could have both been like annoying their parents.
And then also in this chapter we see Dumbledore return James Potter's invisibility cloak to Harry, and I have lots of questions about that. Like, can Voldemort see through the one true invisibility cloak? I would assume no, since death itself cannot see through it. And therefore, like, would it have made a difference if Dumbledore hadn't had it the night that James and Lily were killed?
I don't think that James and Lily would have worn an invisibility cloak when Voldemort came for them.
But they
Also,
might have put it over Harry.
that's true. But I feel like Voldemort would figure out there's a baby in there somewhere, and Voldemort would just find a baby. Like, it's not like there was like a bunch of people running in, closing in on Voldemort, and he had like no time.
That's true.
No,
And how are you going to keep a 1.5-year-old quiet, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure when a kid realizes their parents might have just been killed, that they might have. There's a strange man in their house, and they might start crying.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think it would have. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But speaking of Christmas, since we're on the subject, I had questions.
Let's do it. Those are all my questions.
Oh, okay, cool.
For that chapter.
My first question about Christmas was that I noticed that Hermione got gifts for Harry and Ron. I did not notice that Harry got anything for anybody. He didn't seem to mention doing anything for anyone at all, which I guess
He has
isn't
more
right.
money than them.
But he also probably has never really experienced Christmas, so
That's true.
he may not think to get. So I'm like, whatever. And then I don't think that Ron got anything for anyone.
I don't think he did either.
Opened something for Ron, so I doubt Ron got something for Hermione either.
Which begs the question, like, where did Hermione get these gifts? Did she purchase them after she went home and they, like, stopped in Diagon Alley Is there a mail order system in the wizarding world from like where at Hogwarts you can order things?
I would imagine that at Hogwarts they have access to buying sweets and stuff in some way. Whether it's just like upperclassmen are going to Hogsmeade and coming back with sweets and selling them to underclassmen, or there's actually a way you can order stuff. There's some way of getting that. I imagine there are entrepreneurs in the wizarding world who are like, I know what kids want. They want candy. Let's get it to them.
That's true.
So, yeah, I'm sure she did that. I'm sure she had money to do so. Her parents are both dentists, so that would mean they're pretty economically well off generally. I mean, at least in the U.S., if you're a pretty good career. So it probably wasn't a big deal for her to buy a little whatever. Family probably gave her some kind of allowance, and she decided to buy it on gifts, and that was very sweet of her. And Ron probably doesn't have any sort of allowance to go buy chocolates. So it's not like Ron was unthoughtful for not getting a gift, or I think Harry was unthoughtful because he didn't know what Christmas was like. It was just interesting to me to kind of see how each of them did Christmas. And I'm not totally sure that Ron didn't get Harry something for Christmas, because he mentions that he told his mom that Harry didn't expect anything for Christmas, and then his mom went and got something. And I think in Ron's way, that's how he could get a gift for somebody.
And I think it's really sweet that Molly actually doesn't go buy anything, I don't think. I think that's homemade fudge, and we know she made the sweater.
Yeah.
So I think that's even better than them going and buying gifts for him.
Well, I don't think
that's like
would have been a good idea for the Weasleys anyway.
Yeah, but that's like a level of love he hasn't been shown before. Someone making him a gift.
Yeah. Hey, but he did get the money from the Dursleys.
The 50 pence piece, is that what it was?
I think so, yeah. And Ron thought it was so cool. That's actually another example of like some kind of intercultural exchange happening. Ron getting excited about Muggle money. There aren't many pieces of it, but there was one. Let's see, did I have any other questions? Oh, and I was also just curious about Mrs. Weasley making that for Harry, because it made me wonder, did Mrs. Weasley ever make a sweater for the friends of her other sons?
I wonder about that because, like, we don't know who Charlie's best friend was. We don't know who Bill's best friend was. Percy doesn't really have a best friend. Fred and George have each other. And then there's
George and Ron are close friends, I think.
I think they have other close friends, but I think they're probably each other's best friends.
Yeah. And it's just interesting because it seems like part of it is Mrs. Weasley being nice to Harry, because Harry doesn't have a family, and she's probably aware of that. But I think it's also something that she does for Ron in a way, because Ron feels like he's overshadowed by his siblings, but Mrs. Weasley goes out of her way to be nice to Ron's new friend, and in a way is helping Ron make a friend.
That's true.
She's making sure that her son has friends, and has a good friend too, because she thinks Harry's a nice kid. She met him once and goes, okay, he's a nice kid, he's not a jerk.
I've met you once. Christmas presents for you.
But I'm sure Ron's also talked about Harry in letters. I would imagine Ron writes to his mom frequently.
I would imagine that if he didn't, he would be in a lot of trouble with Molly.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because he's, 11-year-old kid. I feel like if my kid was going off, I'd be like, okay, excuse me, you're going to write to me. My 11-year-old child? Yeah, no. Oh, and then Hagrid was my other question about Christmas, is that Hagrid made Harry a gift, and it just made me wonder, whether Hagrid got gifts for any other students, like that year specifically, like maybe Ron and Hermione. I think future I think if he gave Ron or Hermione something this year, Harry wouldn't have noticed, so he wouldn't know. We don't really know who Ron got gifts from, other than we saw the sweater and there's a mention of Hermione's gift because Ron was holding it at the time.
And we have no way of knowing what Hermione received because she's not there.
Others at any point, since he basically didn't have parents like Harry, and so he was maybe when he was in school he exchanged gifts with friends, but I don't really get the feeling that Hagrid really had friends at Hogwarts. He had monsters.
And also, I think it's really important to note that Hagrid has known Harry since he was an infant. Hagrid's the one who took Harry away from the wreckage. Hagrid's the one that told Harry he was a wizard, brought him to Diagon Alley for the first time, brought him across to Hogwarts in the boats. I think that makes Hagrid really important to Harry, but I think that also makes Harry really important to Hagrid.
Yeah. Hagrid's like family, and Harry's like family. I think it's good for Hagrid, it's good for Harry. Mm-hmm. They have each other. I had some other questions about libraries, but they're not super important to me, and we're almost halfway.
I do want to talk about the first sub-bullet point in your library questions, at least, because I think that's really interesting.
Okay. My question was, does the Wizarding World have public libraries?
And I wonder this because I wonder if there's one at Diagon Alley. I wonder if there's one at Hogsmeade. I wonder where those would be. Maybe within large wizarding communities.
Yeah.
And they should have public libraries.
Yeah. It's also interesting just to think about the percentage of the population that wizards make up of the British population. I forget what number I gave on Facebook. I don't know if you have Facebook nearby.
I don't have it open right now. My computer's super slow.
I might be able to pull it up on my phone. Let's see. What are we looking for? Reread. You said that. I said.
I was very impressed with your very thorough and thought-out response, by the way.
Thank you. I just, I'd wanted to respond, and then I was like, no, I have to think about this, because there's a lot here, and there's a lot to get into that has to do with just, looking at the economics and everything. Yeah, so I calculated as a very rough estimate, and this would be a high number, if you had an even distribution of people ages 0 to 10 to 100, which now that I think about it, wizards live longer than that. So actually it might be more accurate than it would be with a muggle population. But okay, just assuming there's the same number of people at age 0 as there are at 10, as 20, 30, 100, whatever. We know that Hogwarts has about 1,000 students, according to J.K. Rowling. So divide that by 7, and we'll do how many you would have if there were an even distribution. And that is 14,000 in the entire UK, which is 0.0002% of the population of the UK. Which, if you think about it, means that pretty much either you live in one of the very few wizarding areas that we know about, or you don't live near wizards. I feel like there's London, so there's probably different enclaves of wizarding populations in and around London. And then there's probably up near Hogwarts in Hogsmeade and probably a couple other places. And other than that, for the most part, it's probably
Godric's Hollow. And where the Weasleys live, even though Ottery St. Catchpole is near a Muggle village, like the Diggorys obviously live somewhere close to there, and the Lovegoods as well.
Mm-hmm.
They've got at least a few around there.
Yeah, so there are probably just very few specific points. So in looking at, like, is there a public library? Part of the issue is just, like, the transportation to and from. But I imagine...
For young people, not for older people, not for people 17 and older, because they can just app right there. Or they could use... Anyone could use the Flu Network to get to the libraries.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about. I would hope they have public libraries.
Me too.
I also just really like that there's such an awesome library at Hogwarts. I really like libraries. I made a graphic. I'll just show the graphic, but I don't need to talk about it. Give me a minute. Where is it? Oh, that's not what I want. I know where it is. It's in here. I don't even know what I called it. That's not helpful. What do I do with it? Okay, I should do this a smart way. Well, that does that. I can, because Finder is being slow. Oh, there it is. I just can't open it. Where is screen share? Come on, Chrome. Screen share. I want to share this momentarily. Aha, there. So this is a map I made with census data. That's the per capita visits to libraries in the U.S. by state. And so it's just kind of interesting to see where per capita visits are highest. Ohio is the highest with 8.0 was their data they gave, and then the lowest, I believe, was Mississippi with 3.0.
It's interesting because I feel like there's a pretty clear line there right at about the Mason-Dixon line.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. I really like maps, so I just like mapping it. It's not.
It's very cool that you made that.
I was also going to try to map data on libraries per capita worldwide. The only problem with that, and I'm going to switch back to my face.
Okay.
Doing that is that there's not one consistent measurement. So different organizations have measured in different countries, and so you can't be sure that the data are like completely following the same
guidelines.
Yeah, and so they're not even all the same years, and I didn't have time to like dig through the data and decide what to use and what not to use. But anyway, my only other question I had on this chapter, back on subject, because that map wasn't very on subject.
That was on subject. That was totally on subject.
It was about libraries. It was just interesting. Going to libraries is kind of cool.
I'm still seeing the map, by the way.
Oh, you're still seeing it?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should turn screen share on and off again. Share. And then stop. Maybe.
There we go.
Cool. Turned it off and turned it back on again, or the reverse. Yeah. So my only other question on this chapter was, which is a very big, loaded question, full of rage and was that in this chapter, Dumbledore appears to Harry after he's gone to the mirror a couple times, and he explains the mirror to Harry, and then he says, if you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared. Does Dumbledore, like, explicitly know that Harry is going to go face Voldemort?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I think it even, like, I think, if I recall correctly, he even sort of says that at the end.
It makes me so mad. When I was a little kid, when I was like 8 years old or whatever, maybe 7, when I read this, I was like, oh, so cool, Harry got to whatever, and the adults think he can do stuff. And now as I read it, I'm like, why would you let an 11-year-old child go face all time, whatever, like most powerful evil wizard?
And the other thing I'll say about that is that Dumbledore was stalking Harry.
That's also really creepy. He gave Harry a gift, the cloak, and then stalked him because he used the gift as a way to know what Harry would be doing. He knew once he gave that cloak to Harry, Harry would sneak out, and so he stalked him. And that is really creepy.
Incredibly creepy.
Yeah, I understand that teachers and the headmaster have some responsibility to the students to protecting them, and there's some validity in Dumbledore realized Harry was going to be out, and so he went and made sure he was okay. But this is Dumbledore, like, creepily just watching him and Ron while they're staring in the mirror.
And it's interesting because Harry can't see what Ron sees in the mirror, Vera said, but Dumbledore can see what Ron sees.
Well, Dumbledore was listening, probably.
That's true.
So, Dumbledore just repeated what
Or it was special
Harry
Dumbledore
said.
magic.
Probably Dumbledore just repeated. Dumbledore may have just been saying things about Ron and psychoanalyzing him because he clearly just knows all first-year students very well. He knows Ron perfectly, even though he probably has not interacted with Ron at all yet.
Yeah.
I have some feels about Dumbledore.
He's not a particularly responsible adult.
He should not be in charge of children. I will concede that he did good. He was effective at organizing a resistance movement, and being able to see what actions need to be taken, and I respect that. But you should not be in charge of children, Dumbledore.
Nope.
You're not. You can't. No.
He shows such blatant disregard for Harry's life. Over and over, like already so many times already in this first book. And we're not even to the end of it. And this is book 1 of 7.
I know. But later he develops feelings and feels sad about it. And that justifies everything.
Yeah, just like Snape crying and letting Harry find out that he's supposed to be slaughtered is totally redemptive. Those are some magical tears for sure. But that is for another day.
Harry, you named your children after these people. What? What? Ginny, what were you thinking letting him name the children?
Why did Ginny let him do that? Like, there were so many other actually brave people that his kids could have been named after.
Fred.
Mm-hmm.
Lupin. Tonks.
Mm-hmm.
It was better dead people.
Yeah.
I mean, he was going for dead people.
Hedwig would have made a better name than that.
Hedwig is, I'm pretty sure, named after a person not in the Bible, but in Christian history, who
the
had
patron saint of something.
No, who had a goblet that turned water into wine, and that's the first miracle that Jesus does apparently in the Bible. And so Harry's first entrance into the wizarding world, he gets Hedwig, which is a really interesting bit of symbolism that I'm pretty sure J.K. Rowling intentionally went with because she knows her history.
She does. I I really felt like I read that it was patron saint of something.
She might have been made a saint. I don't know. But anyway, it's not really relevant to much at all.
Right, that's fair.
Gotta stay on topic. And
Sorry. Okay.
Harry Potter and social justice. Yes. On to the next chapter, I think. Unless you had anything else, but we're gotta keep moving along.
Nope. I had a very similar first question to yours.
Oh. Do you want to lead with yours then?
Sure. Early in the chapter, Malfoy puts Neville in a leg locker curse, and he tells him he's not brave enough to be in Gryffindor. And when Neville comes back into Gryffindor Tower, everybody is laughing hysterically at him after he's already been tortured, and the kid has come all the way from the library, which isn't even on the same floor of Hogwarts as the Gryffindor common room, so I don't know how he made it up the stairs, but it was amazing. So Hermione reverses the curse, and Harry tells Neville that he's worth 12 of Malfoy, but that's the end of the support that he receives. So adults in Hogwarts are completely oblivious to the blatant bullying occurring in their school, and there are no repercussions, it seems, for students or teachers who bully other students. And I wonder where the heck are the school counselors? And if there aren't any school counselors, why aren't the heads of house getting involved? And also, if we saw a female being bullied this mercilessly, would the faculty be more likely to do something about it? So it really just relates to your first question in that Neville had to climb through with the leg locker curse.
Well, my second question is comparing the reaction of the students when Neville enters. And I wasn't trying to say, hey, everybody's bullying him flat out.
I totally was.
I try to write my questions that people can have a different opinion than me in the response pretty easily without saying, no, I disagree. Yeah, but yeah, I read that and I was like, really? They're all laughing at him and nobody... Two for you, Hermione. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Even, I think Ron and Harry ended up being helpful, nice. I don't remember Ron, but I know Harry
gave him a chocolate frog and told him he was worth 12 of Malfoy, and in doing so helped himself by getting the chocolate frog card back.
Oh yeah, and Ron was telling him to stand up to Malfoy.
I really like your first question, and I thought about that too when we saw that Neville had a hard time getting into Gryffindor.
I will read my question for the internet. So Gryffindor students have to climb through the portrait hole to enter Gryffindor Tower. Is there an accessible alternative for students with mobility disabilities? Which I have thought about a lot, and I've thought about disability access at Hogwarts a lot as a disabled person.
There are so many stairs.
Right? Oh my gosh.
And we know they don't have like electricity, but we also know that the Ministry of Magic still has elevators, so they could in theory have elevators at Hogwarts.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is the staircases are always moving, and that is not good for other sorts of disabilities with like any sort of like, I mean, I'm sure Neville gets lost all the time. They keep moving. It's rude. Stop it.
Or for people who get overstimulated.
Yeah, I mean
that's easily.
I was gonna say that would be my biggest issue is stimulation at Hogwarts, especially people who need like a pattern or they need some kind of schedule to be able to function well. I don't like using functional language like that. I take that back. But anyway, people who need structure and like the repetition, if the castle itself, the layout of where they live is changing, that has to be so stressful and unhelpful. And I just wonder about like, are there things at Hogwarts for accessibility for students? Because we don't really see many disabilities within the context of the whole series. There's Moody, who limps, kind of, and there's Lupin, who
He only has one eye.
only has one eye too, but it's a magical eye, so it's kind of like better than a regular eye. It's not really a disability. It's like
There's a really cool Tumblr, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's all about Hogwarts and students with disabilities. And one of the really cool things that I saw in there was the idea of the room of requirement, like providing a sort of refuge for students who need it. But we know that at least initially not that many students know about the room of requirement, so hopefully that's something that comes about.
yeah. So Hogwarts has a disability support system. They are not advertising it, or at least Harry doesn't notice. Harry does not notice a lot of things.
That's very true. Oh, something really important about this chapter that is not related to what you just said. So in this chapter, they mention, let's see, they mention Parnell Flamel, and they mention Professor McGonagall. But Hermione is the only non-male person who has ever physically present and referenced by name during this chapter. And I find that really interesting. And I get that it's a point of view of an 11-year-old male child, but it was just interesting to me.
When the book was written, it was chosen to be told from the point of view of an 11-year-old male child, so.
Exactly. So I just thought that that was interesting. And I didn't know how to feel about it.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that's also interesting, though, is that, I mean, I'm not totally sure on this, so I'm not like looking at chapters to confirm, but I think as the series goes on, we get more female characters in more scenes and interacting with each other and being more central parts of the plot. So you have 11-year-old Harry, who mostly only seems to pay attention to male characters, and Hermione, you know, mentioned Hermione and she's present, but otherwise he's very much into his like male-centric world, and he grows up and he evolves. I
find it particularly interesting because there's a Quidditch match in this chapter, and despite there being other non-males on the Gryffindor Quidditch team, and in the Gryffindor common room, and in the stands watching the Quidditch match, they still aren't mentioned.
Are other players mentioned in this Quidditch match really at all? I think it's mostly just Harry catches the snitch. I don't remember though. I mean, it's Harry catches the snitch, and it's also Ron and Hermione are freaking out, and Neville beats up Malfoy.
And Ron snapping at Hermione again, which he does a lot. Like, I've started making note of it when he does that. He does it a lot.
He already has one mother. He doesn't need a second. Or so Ron would say.
Yeah, but why would she even be friends with him when he's so rude and nasty to her all the time? Frequently, not all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not all the time.
So let's see, Neville's mentioned, Snape is mentioned, Wood, Fred Weasley, Dumbledore, Malfoy, Crabbe, Goyle, George. So there are lots of, I mean, the Weasley twins and Wood, all three of them are mentioned, but none of the three female chasers are.
None of the Slytherin team is mentioned, at least.
But we know, and they mention eventually that the Slytherin team is all male.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the questions we didn't get to last time. Was talking about how like the Gryffindor team is co-ed, which is a big deal, but the Slytherin team is not. And I find that very interesting and also not particularly surprising to me.
I don't know that it's necessarily a big deal that the Gryffindor Quidditch team is co-ed. Within the Wizarding world, I don't think it's a big deal. Because you have, like, there's the Holyhead Harpies, which is an all-female team, and they play in the same league.
You froze. There you go. You're back.
Okay. So the professional Quidditch league is a co-ed league, and it's not really mentioned in the book that it's a big.
You froze again.
It's also freezing because I don't care if you can see my face.
Yes, the sound was also freezing.
Oh, okay. That's not cool.
Back now, though.
Good. That's good. I'm here. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's more of a big deal from our context, reading as readers, and it's interesting. One of the things that I actually appreciate about that is that sometimes you can go and write a storyline where it starts off like our world and people fight and make it better, but it's also really validating to have storylines where they've already moved past us. They already have co-ed teams, and the world hasn't ended, and we don't need to have a conversation about it within the context of the story because it's normal. And those sorts of stories will normalize the idea of men and women playing a sport together and it not needing to be separated.
So in that context, then I think it would be sort of a big deal that the Slytherin, at least at this point, do not have any females on their team.
Yeah, possibly. I don't think really know many female Slytherins at all, though, either. Pansy?
That's true. Millicent?
Okay, two. There's two.
I can't think of any others.
We don't know Millicent yet. I don't even know, has Pansy been mentioned even?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so.
Maybe in the flying lesson.
Maybe. Maybe there just aren't that many girls in Slytherin.
I find that very unlikely.
That'd be really interesting if there were houses that had like a uneven gender distribution. Yeah, just like what happens when a house suddenly has like 10 boys and like one girl in the 1 year? Like 1 year, just the boys tend to all be in Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, and the girls are mostly just Slytherins and Gryffindors. Wouldn't that be weird if that?
That would really complicate the dormitory situation.
Yeah.
Since there are like 7.
I wonder if the Sorting Hat has to keep in mind that to make like even gender distribution. And
I bet so. And I think I read somewhere that approximately the same number of students are sorted into each house each year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's pretty equally distributed.
It's interesting to think about. But anyway, were there any other questions for this chapter that were like big important ones to get to? Because we have only a few more minutes.
They mentioned Snape reading minds again, which I just think is an interesting, like, foreshadowing. Mm-hmm. Harry didn't see how he could, yet he sometimes had the horrible feeling that Snape could read minds. And so I wonder what the implication this has on the way Snape treats Harry, especially if Snape's hearing all the horrible things that Harry thinks about him.
I don't think Snape is accessing Harry's mind, because I think the way that's shown in the books is that it's something you would be aware of if somebody's accessing your mind.
That's true.
So I don't think Snape's just going around reading students' mind, because it's not reading minds, it's attacking somebody's thoughts, kind of.
And it should be super illegal. I don't know if it is, but it should be super
It's not an
illegal.
unforgivable crime.
It's not what? Oh, sorry.
Unforgivable.
That's true. Not unforgivable, but still should be illegal, in my mind.
And then the only other questions I had were about bullying. And we talked about bullying a little bit already. I think one of the ones, I guess, to me, the most interesting, and it's something we really haven't talked about much, is looking at these scenes of bullying from the perspective of a young reader who may be experiencing bullying themselves. So what this might be teaching young readers about how to deal with bullying. Because this one chapter has an arc for Neville where he goes from hobbling into the Gryffindor Tower to beating Malfoy up.
Fist fight, yeah.
And so on one hand, it's kind of this arc where it's like Neville learning to stick up for himself, and on the other hand, maybe it's an arc that's teaching kids that the way to stick up for yourself is to punch somebody, and that's
problematic.
Maybe that's what you want to teach. But there also doesn't seem to be any sort of support from teachers, so it's not like the go your teacher and talk about it, find a trusted adult seems like a good idea. I don't know, I don't know. But it is something that you could use when you're talking about young people about bullying and say, okay, well, this character experienced bullying like you're experiencing it. What could you do? What would you do?
One of the things that really bothers me that teachers nowadays do is they'll tell kids like not to tattle. I've seen this happen in schools that I've worked in and done internships in and things, and it makes it really hard for the students, like they're young. It's really hard for them to discern like what's tattling and what's telling a trusted adult when I need to. Mm-hmm. And so I find that really problematic, and I find it really interesting that throughout the story we haven't seen like Malfoy or anyone get told on to the teachers for what he's doing. Like no one has reported it. Mm-hmm. And I know some schools have anonymous reporting systems. Hogwarts apparently does not.
Apparently not. Also, the other thing I was thinking about for like a young reader is also, besides Neville's arc, it also is a way to talk to young people about like how you should respond when kid in your class comes in with his legs in a leg locker curse and wobbles into the tower, falls through the portrait hole, and everybody starts laughing. What do you do? Do you laugh with them, or do you go?
You don't be a bystander like them. You be an ally like Hermione.
Yeah. And a little bit like Harry and Ron, who are just like, yeah, stand up for yourself. You're all right, Neville. I think Hermione was probably the best example because she actually just went in and was like, excuse me, I'm going to undo this curse on you. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's really probably the biggest message, I think, as a young person that I got reading this wasn't the I should go punch somebody so much as it was if somebody is bullying somebody else, I should do something.
Something that's really interesting to me is that when I first read, like I got the first 3 books for Christmas when I was in 5th grade, and I was being picked on pretty heavily at that point. And I didn't ever make that connection between what was going on with Neville and what was going on with me until the last time I did a reread, which was less than a year ago. So it's interesting that I was not able or capable of or in tune enough with what was going on to sort of connect to that part of the fiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't really know why, but yeah. So this is about time.
Okay.
So I think this is a good point to.
It is. We've done all the questions and everything this time.
Yeah. We may have skipped over a couple sub questions. But...
Yeah.
So next week, I think, do we only have 2 more weeks?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. We have 2 more weeks, and then we have a whole book, unstructured, maybe structured, just general thoughts on book.
I think I'm gonna watch the movie before that too.
We have talked about trying to watch the movie at the same time. It might be hard to do.
That might be really difficult. Maybe we could just all watch it like the same day and then talk about it that night.
Yeah. I know with Rabbit, you can actually watch things on the internet while on video chat.
I don't even know what that is.
It's basically Skype or Google Hangouts or Firefox Hello, I guess it is. I don't know. The different video chat, whatever's. But it's just a different one. And so you can actually watch Netflix at the same time with somebody.
Which would be helpful if Harry Potter was on Netflix.
It is on Netflix, just not the first one.
Since when?
Not the English ones. It's on the Mexico, Argentina.
That's not really that helpful.
They have it in English. I think
but I just have American Netflix.
Oh, well, you can use all the different Netflixes with one Netflix, but there's a browser thing called Hola, which lets you watch the thing from the other countries, which is how I watch Dutch media a lot because I've been learning. And yeah, there's not much Dutch language stuff on American Netflix, but there is a lot on. I can't end the live part from this computer.
Ooh. Dun dun dun.
Can I somehow? Oh, I can. I can maybe kick off. Oh no, I can't.
Can you get to your other computer?
Yeah, it's just being used.
Oh.
It's not my computer, but that one works better. That's why it's on. So, but this one didn't crash. This computer crashes when I do.
Yay!
Crashes every time. That's why we've missed some live streams on the YouTube channel. Okay, well, I do not. Okay, internet, stop watching now. Just go away.
Bye.
I don't know how to end this. Actually, I can just end. We can just both hang up, and then it'll be blank.
Have a good night. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, there.